We're ready for the start. They're off.
Welcome in. If it's Tuesday, it's official. Jeff Siegel, Jeremy Plonk from First Bet and Express Bet. It's our weekly banner show where we take on 5 hot button topics. Jeff, I don't know if we're going to get hot under the collar here for the end of summer or not, but we had some hot racing on the track at Saratoga last weekend.
It was a great weekend of racing. So many terrific performances, and these are critical preps to the Breeders' Cup. And sometimes you see these races and they kind of fall flat. They don't produce the kind of necessarily the performance you're looking for. But I mean, last weekend it was just terrific at Saratoga. Del Mar wasn't bad either. So what we saw last week, we're going to see again in Kentucky, and I just can't wait. Hopefully all of these really terrific horses are going to be healthy and sound for Breeders' Cup. Promises to be a fantastic day of racing at Keeneland. But as you pointed out, there are some races here that need discussing. We learned a lot of things, and we're going to try to capitalize on what we learned.
Yeah, there were horses we thought were pretty good. There's horses we knew were pretty good. And there were some horses we didn't know were as good as they showed they were last weekend. So let's get right to the big board. Our first topic, of course, it was Travers weekend. Let's talk Travers. Epic performance from Epicenter. The runner-up in the Derby and the Preakness got back on the beam in the Jim Dandy, and he just kicked the beam over in the Run Happy Travers. Let's go back to John Embrial's call.
It is still Cyberknife on top here. It's Cyberknife getting away here to lead by 2 lengths. Epicenter now picks up the chase. It's Cyberknife, and here is Epicenter moving well right alongside. Epicenter on the outside of Cyberknife, and there's a quarter of a mile to the finish in the 153rd Run Happy Travers. Here is Epicenter now to take over the lead. Cyberknife is down at the rail and racing in second. Zandon has now moved into third. They pass the 8th pole. It is Epicenter in front, and he is at the top of the 3-year-old class. Epicenter won the Jim Dandy, and he backs it up with a very top-notch finish in the Run Happy Travers.
Jeff, that's the way you want to see it. He had his head down in the stretch, and then when it was time to ease up, he just looked like he was having fun. That was a textbook performance from Epicenter. He had hinted at that. He was really good in the spring at Fairgrounds in the Louisiana Derby Series. He ran really good in the Kentucky Derby. Most years would win without that freakish rail rally. In the Preakness, that was probably the disappointment that he couldn't come and get early voting. But he is not disappointed often, and now you have to stamp him clearly at the head of the class.
Well, he is absolutely light years ahead of everybody on resume. Now, if you look at his form, he was dominant at Fairgrounds earlier this year. He certainly ran well in the 2 Triple Crown races that he ran in. In the Preakness, he was 8th early. We saw, and he had too much to do. We saw in this race his tactical speed. And if you're Steve Asmussen, you have to think, okay, I'd like to see Life is Good go out and win. I'd like to see Flightline go out and win because they're going to set things up for me. Because my horse, I know, can sit 3rd or 4th and make that run. And when we're talking about Breeders' Cup, we're talking about Horse of the Year being on the line. So, I mean, for Epicenter to come out and earn that 112 Byron number, 10 points better than he ever, his career top. I didn't know whether he had that quantum move in him, that leap in numbers and performance. You had a lot more confidence than I did, and you thought he would win this race. Yeah. But did you think he'd win it with this kind of authority, Jeremy? Because this was unbelievably impressive.
No, not with the dominance and the visual look to it, right? Because he was not only dominant, he didn't look completely extended to be dominant, right. So that I didn't think, I mean, it was above and beyond. It was the best performance to date from him for sure. And that's not breaking news. We don't need to throw the red blinking breaking news banner up on that one, but he now talks in the category of the big horses as we get to the Breeders' Cup. And the Breeders' Cup, you say, well, geez, can't you just relish in this victory first and worry about the Breeders' Cup later? But look, he's not running again between now and the Breeders' Cup. That will be his big race, and that's all that they will do between now and the first weekend in November at Keeneland is work backwards on the calendar. Now, if I know Steve Asmussen, even if there's not a race coming up, this horse will be back on the workout tab in 10 days, probably, maybe even a little bit shorter, 10 to 14 at the max. He is not going to get a long break and then just have a work or two up to the Breeders' Cup. We're going to know how he came out of this race in short time, 10 to 14 days for sure. Asmussen's horses, when they're in a good form cycle, they almost always outwork everybody else. He'll have 3 works to somebody else's 2 coming out of the same races. So I would expect that the training regimen between now and the Breeders' Cup for Epicenter will be demanding, and it will have to be as he steps up and takes on older horses for the first time. He'll need to run this race and a little bit better to beat the best of the older division.
He's also a very good workhorse, and he's got enough horses in his barn. He can simulate races in the morning. Yeah. So there's not a doubt in my mind that you're going to see Epicenter at his very best, and maybe even better on Breeders' Cup Day than what we saw on the Travers, if that's possible. But the tactical speed, the acceleration, the ability to be anywhere on the racetrack and still win is his strength. And now that he's fast on figs, and maybe as fast as anybody out there, he is a serious player, even against the older horses when he faces them on Breeders' Cup Day. I also want to bring out the fact that the second, third, and fourth place finishers in this race all earned career top buyer numbers. So Cyberknife, he ran his race. He ran terrific on the lead. He'd never really been on the lead before. I don't know if that's his preferred style, but he certainly ran well. I thought that Zandon ran well. I mean, he's obviously a cut below the best, but he's still a very good horse. And even Rich Strike, I mean, he did fine. He did his best, as well as he could do. He was in the photo for second. I mean, there's nothing wrong with him at all. He's a nice horse. So this was not only a terrific race in terms of the players in the field, but they all ran well. And that's gratifying. Having said that, though, we still have one more big race to go in the division. It's the Pennsylvania Derby, and you've got Taiba and Charge It pointing for that. Perhaps Charge It. Well, hopefully he's going to be ready to run there. Now, they could stake a claim to championship 3-year-olds if they were to win one of those. And then come back and win the Breeders' Cup. But that's like being 6 games out with 7 to play. And,
there's no X next to your name. You're not eliminated. But
I'm not counting on that to happen, but it's still there. Otherwise, we found our champion, I think, last Saturday.
Yeah, now the Breeders' Cup Classic Future Pool 2 will be offered this weekend. You can bet it at First Bet and Express Bet. Begins Friday, runs through the Labor Day Monday holiday, and then closes at the end of the afternoon racing day on Monday on Labor Day. So if you're betting the Breeders' Cup Classic Futures at this time, maybe not the best time to jump in on Epicenter because everybody just saw what happened there, but we'll see. We're going to have Flightline running this weekend in the Pacific Classic. And if Flightline runs off at the Pacific Classic, he's obviously going to be a big underlay and heavily bet in the Breeders' Cup Futures. Maybe that will help your price on somebody else. So if you like Epicenter and you want him to be your Breeders' Cup horse, you're hoping Flightline goes out and wins by 24 this weekend in the Pacific Classic so that everybody bets him in the future pool. And then cross your fingers that Flightline's not in the race because if he wins by 24, you're not beating him in November. So,
I tell you what, he may win by that many based on what I've seen of him in the morning. And I don't know if there's anybody that can run with him around here early, late, or in the middle. But you're right. I mean, if we get Epicenter going out, Flightline going out and doing what I think he's going to do on Saturday, you're going to have a very interesting future book bet on one or the other. And if you think that one of them might not show up, or whatever, then maybe you'll get an edge. Otherwise, I don't know. But it's going to be fun this Saturday at Del Mar to see if Flightline can do what Epicenter did last Saturday.
Okay, we get to see Flightline, but we won't see Life is Good at 1.25 miles, probably before the Breeders' Cup Classic. I think the Woodward is the race he's aiming for, so that's going to be, I think, 1.125 miles in the prep ranks there. So give me this thought, Mr. Siegel. Epicenter, Life is Good at 1.25 miles. Between those two, are you on the 3-year-old or are you on the blazingly fast 4-year-old who may or may not get the 1.25 miles?
Based on what I saw last Saturday, I'd be on Epicenter. Don't forget, he's a 3-year-old, and he's still in a developing, maturing, improving pattern. That's what we saw here. Think about how impressive Arrogate was when he won the Travers. Well, he got even better than that, if you think about his Dubai race. And I think Epicenter, He'll be fresh. There's nothing to prove. They don't have to worry about getting him another race into him.
No.
He's a good workhorse. I know he'll go a mile and a quarter. The way he won this race, a mile and a quarter, it might be his best distance. Whereas I'm not sure that's ever going to be Life is Good's best distance, especially if you throw in Flightline. So no, a Flightline to me is still the number one. But man, Epicenter just impressed the heck out of me. I just think he's incredibly special.
He feels like a clear number 2 in the Breeders' Cup Classic division, according to your opinion. And we'll go to topic 2 this week and switch Breeders' Cup divisions. With the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, there were some new shooters who showed up in the division over the last week. We talked about Flightline and, the Met Mile winner trying the classic distance now. We talked about Life is Good, the defending champion in the Dirt Mile, probably looking at the classic. So who's going to take over in this Dirt Mile division? Well, we got a little bit of a surprise in the forego. His name was Cody's Wish. Let's take a look back to that one in the sprint ranks, but a race that probably translates to the Dirt Mile.
Jackie's Warrior on the inside and Pipeline on the outside, and the two of them are right together through a half mile in 45 seconds. And then 3-2 zone racing in third. Baby Yoda is fourth. Now they come into the stretch, and Jackie's Warrior is being asked for more here by Joel Rosario. Pipeline is on the outside. It is Pipeline and Jackie's Warrior, and putting in a late run here is Cody's Wish on the outside. Jackie's Warrior tested here today. Cody's Wish on the outside. Cody's Wish with the upset in the forego. Cody's Wish from off the pace wins the Grade 1 forego. Jackie's Warrior was second, and Pipeline finished third, and the final time was 1 minute 20 and 4/5 seconds.
Big time performance to run down the favorite there, Jeff. Jackie's Warrior didn't back up to the rest of the pack. The margins from the others really didn't make a big change there on Saturday. So is it Cody's Wish wanting more? This is a horse who was able to get up closing in the sprint ranks. Probably more of a Dirt Mile horse as we put him in this division.
Yeah, I think you would. I mean, he's not a 6 furlong horse, and he's not a mile and a quarter horse, at least not yet. He's by Curlin on a dance card, and so it's there. He's now won 6 out of 10. Funny thing is, he's only had 2 races around 2 turns. The second start of his life, he ran a mile and an eighth at Saratoga off a maiden race, and he finished third that day. He clearly wasn't ready to do that. Yeah. And then he somehow managed to explain this to me. How does he get beat at Tampa Bay? He go to mile 16. Now, he got beat a neck by Scalding, who was good at the time.
At the time, yeah.
Now you have this colt by Curlin, who has now won 3 in a row, won the Westchester, won a listed stakes at Churchill. Numbers are rising. Again, a career top 112 here. More impressive than just the race, though, Jeremy, is the fact that he came and got Jackie's Warrior, even though they didn't go fast. It wasn't like it was a setup. 22 and 3, 45 flat. That's not that fast going 7/8. And he had to circle the pack, and he wasn't going away. I mean, we have a colt now that you have to start taking seriously for a Breeders' Cup Mile type of race. As long as he can handle 2 turns based on pedigree, I just think he's so much better now than he was before that I don't think the 2 turns will bother him at all. This was breathtaking, and it was legit, and it was for real.
And what do we make of Jackie's Warrior? We're going to talk a lot of Dirt Mile here, but Jackie's Warrior, champion sprinter from a year ago. Look, he did get burned up last year in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. So if Jackie's Warrior's got anything to add to his resume, it's a Breeders' Cup title yet. Does this, in your opinion, provide a big setback for him? Or is this, look, good horses get beat sometimes, and he didn't run up the track, and he didn't run a terrible race. He just didn't, give us another breathtaking performance.
He still ran fast on numbers. It wasn't like he ran down to their level. I mean, this is a horse that got his trip opened up, and maybe in retrospect, we will look back and say, he got beat by a super horse. I don't know whether Cody's Wish is going to be a super horse, but who's to say he's not for what he did in this race? And again, Jackie's Warrior did not run badly at all. He ran about what his numbers say he should have run. This other horse just rose to the occasion. As far as him not having maybe a trouble with 7/8, he had 4 starts, 3 wins in a second. I don't think that got him beat. I'm of the opinion that maybe Cody's Wish is just better. I mean, just ran better. Right. And that's no reflection of Jackie's Warrior. It's just a positive for Cody's Wish. But backing up to 6 furlongs next time, I think that probably will help Jackie's Warrior. What do you think?
Right. Yeah, I think so. I think that's part of it, right? If they'd run the forego at 6 furlongs, not 7, then do we have a different look at the finish line? We've got a horse who makes a rally and maybe probably doesn't catch Jackie's Warrior. So I think it can still be a fantastic Breeders' Cup for Jackie's Warrior. I don't think he'll prep again. I think he's, he had a tough spring, right? I mean, we talked about this when he came back at Oaklawn and then ran back Derby week at Churchill. Right. We're like, hey, how are they going to get all the way to November by cramming all these races? Right. And at some point when you do that, we talked about this last week in the Asmussen quote where he says, we get paid for what we do, but we pay for what we do. All those races for Jackie's Warrior in a short time frame, April, May, June, maybe catch up to him here at Saratoga for the second race at the meet, right? I mean, he'd already had the historic Grade 1 win at Saratoga that became the first horse ever to win 3 straight summers with a Grade 1 at the Spa. So he worked 2 races into the Saratoga meet even. So now it's time, I think, to give him a little break, wait for Keeneland, and come out at 6 furlongs. And I think he's still the horse to beat in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Do you feel like as rubber stamp that, like, look, this is the most likely winner on Breeders' Cup Day now? Maybe a little bit less, but if he's working great, then we'll see how the field shakes out and all the draw and everything that goes with it. But I'm still very bullish at 6 furlongs on Jackie's Warrior against what I see out there in the sprint division. And if Cody's Wish goes to the dirt mile, that's even better because, maybe cutting back, he can win too. Maybe he's precisionist. He can win going from 6 furlongs to mile and 1/8. We'll find out. But, I think at 6, Jackie's Warrior is going to be just fine. And that'll be his last career start, the way it sounded from Steve Asmussen.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about Cody's Wish, though, is he's a Godolphin horse, and Godolphin has another monster, and trust me, he is a monster in that same division. I don't know if they want to run Cody's Wish against Laurel River, but that would be a pretty good entry there. 1-2. As impressive as Cody's Wish was, Laurel River is just. He is so good. I can just tell you that. I knew he was going to be good. Honestly, I didn't think he was entered in the Pat O'Brien. I didn't think he was going to run. I thought Bob was just putting him in there and maybe saving him for the Pacific Classic as a rabbit, maybe to run against Lightline. But then I'm thinking, I don't think you run Juddmonte horses as a rabbit for somebody else's horse. So I wasn't sure that was going to happen. And then he wasn't even nominated. So this was the race he was going to run in, and breathtaking. And trust me, he's better over a mile than he is going 7/8. But if you didn't get a chance to see Laurel River, it was spectacular.
Well, let's see it.
They come towards the quarter pole, and now it's Speaker's Corner, just in front of Principe Carlo. American Fear Them, the grey is let loose, has to go wide, same as last time, but coming to tackle now. Behind that, funded Senor Buscador. They come for home, and Laurel River slipped through. Suddenly, Speaker's Corner can find no more, and Laurel River in full flight for the wire. American Fear Them chasing gamely, but no match today for Laurel River. Laurel River, very impressive. American Theorem finished second. Senor Buscador was third, and then Speaker's Corner.
So Laurel River awfully good against sprinters. Again, we're looking at a 7 furlong race there in the Pat O'Brien. To the dirt mile, perhaps we go 2 turns with a horse like that, or do you think Baffert cuts him back to the 6 furlong sprint?
Well, this was a win and you're in for the mile, so that's where he's going to go. And he won his previous race by 11 going a mile. He'd also won a race last year by like 10 or 11. So he's one of these. And what I didn't know was whether he could sit behind a wall of horses, take dirt, and come on again. He'd done most of his work on the lead. But this time going into the far turn, he was buried behind horses, taking dirt, not real comfortable where he was. And when that whole open going 7/8, he just exploded and beat American Theorem, who I liked in this race because I thought he was the safe play. And American Theorem ran his race. He just got hit by a horse that's just better than him. And as far as Speaker's Corner is concerned, I think he could probably use the rest of the year off. I just don't understand what's going on there. I mean, you get your head handed to you once, twice, and now 3 times. It's not really fair to the horse. He is just not what he used to be, based on getting his head beat in. But this colt who won here, Jeremy, going to run back, as I understand it, in the Awesome Again, which is a middle distance race. Right. I guess if he were to go out there and win by 10 or 12 on that race, then Bob would think about the Classic for sure. I think that's also a win and you're in. But right now, and also they may take a shot with this colt because they might want to say, we can win the mile with our other colt, Juddmonte. So it's still not a slam dunk that he would go in the Breeders' Cup Mile. But I would tell you this, if he does, I'm not sure who could beat him. And that's how good I think he is. And I thought American Theorem ran his race. I mean, he's a good horse. He's not going to touch a horse like this if this horse runs like he did. But that was not an empty field that he beat, and he did it the right way. And he's fresh, improving, lightly raced. Everything you'd like about a top-class prospect is Laurel River.
And we're talking about a lot of these in-betweener type horses here. That is what the Dirt Mile becomes for the Breeders' Cup division. Another one who had been great going around one turn, took the shot in the Haskell and finished third, and Jack Christopher was back in business on Saturday at Saratoga when he dominated in the Allen Jerkins.
The half mile went in 44 2/5 seconds. It is Conacher, and here's Jack Christopher now to move right alongside. Running Son of a Gun is down at the rail and in third. Gunite is next in fourth as they come down for the furlong marker. And it is Jack Christopher who now gets away from the field. It is Jack Christopher in front. Gunite moves into second. Running Son of a Gun down at the rail in third. It is Jack Christopher back to sprinting today, back to winning today. The Grade 1 H. Allen Jerkins Memorial.
So, Jeff, with Jack Christopher, as we asked with all these horses, better at 6 furlongs or better at the 2-turn 1 mile distance for the Breeders' Cup?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure Chad Brown is completely convinced one way or the other. This colt, he ran in the Haskell first time around 2 turns. He finished third, beaten 2 lengths, but that was a mile and an eighth. And I don't think anybody really thinks he's a mile and an eighth type horse. And Cyberknife and Taba, they're pretty darn good. Don't sell that race short. That was a legit race. The question, though, with Jack Christopher is, can you shorten him up to go 3/4, which I think if he's trained to do that, he can. And he might be something that Jackie's Warrior would have to worry about. Do you go to the mile, which is a 2-turn race against what might be a very, very strong field? Or do you bypass the Breeders' Cup completely, get another win in him somewhere in a race that you think he can win, at Churchill or somewhere, and then set him up for the Malibu? That's your Grade 1. So I don't know. He just won a really good race here, but I think 7/8 and out here in California, I'm not sure we'd see anything that could run with them. I don't know, but when you have a horse as good as Jack Christopher, though, don't you want to be in some Breeders' Cup race somewhere? Pick one and train for it. And I have a hunch Chad's probably going to figure that out real soon.
Cigar Mile, too, in November in New York at Aqueduct. You know, he has to take on older horses in that race where the Malibu straight 3-year-olds. You got the trade-off. Do you want to walk out of your home stall in New York, or do you want to fly across the country? Maybe you're running both. I mean, you could sweep the 2 Grade 1s at the end of the season that he'd be eligible for. A lot of options with Jack Christopher, and it's good to be king. Chad Brown's got a lot of options for all of his horses heading towards the Breeders' Cup. Topic 3 this week is the Distaff musical chairs. Now, Jeff, there have been 6 Grade 1 races run this year in America for the Distaff division. 6 different winners now. Clairiere, Latruska, Malathot. We saw all 3 of them run back this weekend. It was Malathot getting the Grade 1 victory. We've also seen Grade 1 victories this year from a few others around the country as time goes by. Out in California, Pauline's Pearl won down, and Blue Stripe. So there are 6 different Grade 1 winners in the Distaff division, the 6th of which became Malathot when she got her Grade 1 back at Saratoga again in the Personal Ensign last weekend.
3/4 in 1:11 3. Latruska challenged here on the outside by Search Results. Search Results and Latruska. Search Results with a narrow lead. Latruska, and on the outside here is Malathot as they come down for the 16th pole. It is Search Results challenged here by Malathot on the outside. Malathot grabs the lead in deep stretch, and Malathot has won the Personal Ensign Stakes. Search Results was second. Latruska faded to third. The mile and a furlong. 1 minute 48 1/5 seconds.
Now, sometimes you can be fooled by workouts, Jeff. Sometimes the horse is just a morning glory, but you picked up on it, and so did Zoe Cadman in the Express Bet and First Bet Wager Guide. Malathot was training exceptionally well coming into this race, better than she typically trains, and she got the big one here. And, she delivered over a very salty group of Distaff runners here. She's usually a grinder, but she looked like she had a little more pick-me-up in the stretch this time.
I'm curious if I don't think he would say it publicly, but maybe Todd Pletcher, after his last race in the Shoe V, when she really had no excuse, maybe he found something that maybe he wasn't aware of physically and fixed it. I don't know, because the Malathot that I saw work out in between the Shoe V and then the personal Denson was not the same one as I saw before.
Right.
And this was a very legitimate race. I mean, she was always into the bridle, whereas in the Shoe V, she had to be scrubbed on just to be stayed close. And this one, she kind of pulled the jock to the lead and then was able to wear down some really good fillies. Search results from Latruska, did it the right way. So, yeah, hopefully she's back. Yeah, I mean, all of these, how do you separate him? Clairiere runs so well, wins the Phipps. She runs so well and wins the Shoe V, and here she's dead last, and she was 10 lengths behind everybody. What the heck happened there? I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, Steve Asmussen came out in the postscript and said she hit her head on the gate twice, and they didn't back out, but he didn't make excuses. And she also bit her tongue and was bleeding from her tongue. So she was not into this race mentally in the starting gate, and that's why she was so far back and did not deliver her performance. So if you can do one of these draw a line through it with Clairiere, we're back to the musical chairs.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, when these fillies run, train up to the Breeders' Cup, and hopefully they'll all be in here, and that includes Latruska, who won the Spinster at Keeneland as a 3-year-old, so we know she likes the track. We're going to be watching the workouts, because I think these fillies will tip their hand one way or the other. I mean, especially fillies, getting into the fall of the year, some of them have had enough, So we're going to watch these really close to try to separate them. And of course, they all have to beat Nest anyway. I don't know whether that's going to happen. But this division, isn't this really intriguing? Because you've got, as you mentioned, so many Grade 1 winners, Jeremy, and that doesn't count Nest, who's going to take on the older horses. I can't wait for this race. This Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Distaff's going to be fantastic.
You got the Zenyatta Stakes coming still in California. You've got the big one at Keeneland and the Spinster. I mean, we're going to get a couple more chances yet to see somebody else who may be able to rise up. We have the Cotillion to run yet for the 3-year-old fillies at Park, where somebody may make a huge move forward. We know the Distaff division is very good right now. And I'll tell you, Nest would probably go favorite because everybody else is trading punches, and she's been so dominant. If you ran the Breeders' Cup Distaff today, Nest probably runs with a 5 behind her number. She's probably 8-5 against this field, and what a race that is to be an 8-5 shot.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because she hasn't tackled older horses. So, I mean, I'm not saying that any of these wouldn't be doing what Nest is doing if they were allowed to go back and run as 3-year-olds. So.
Right.
No, it's a great division. Sometimes you end up with a 1-5 shotter. It's nice to see a performance, but you'd like competition. There will be competition in this race. Lots of question marks, lots of top class horses that are mares that'll be pointing for that race.
3-year-old fillies have a pretty good history in the Breeders' Cup Distaff over the years. So if you like Nest, don't be afraid of those older mares, but you better respect them. They're pretty darn good. Let's go to our fourth topic this week. This is the one to see much, right, Jeff? I mean, Cody's Wish was a little bit of a surprise to run as well as he did. Some of the other horses who ran well this weekend were expected to. But last weekend, Good Night Olive, it was lights out. What's the old joke? You're so fast you could turn the lights off and be in bed before it got dark. I think that's how fast Good Night Olive was this past weekend. Let's go back to her win in the Ballerina on Sunday.
As they head for home, and it is Travel Column with Good Night Olive on the outside, and Good Night Olive is now taking the lead. Travel Column is back running in second. Then Caramel Swirl, not today for CC. They're at the 16th pole. It is Good Night Olive by 3 lengths. Caramel Swirl in second. Good Night Olive wins the Grade 1 Ballerina. Caramel Swirl was second. Obligatory came from far back to get third. 7 furlongs, 1 minute, 21 and 2/5 seconds.
Now, Jeff, she had been doing that against Allowance Company, was taking a big step up in class, taking on last year's Filly Mare Sprint winner, CC, Bella Sophia, a really good field in there. And it looked like the same as the Allowance results. I mean, she was clear and daylighted them in the end. Chad Brown has another very good one.
Somehow she managed to get beat in her debut, 2-1 at Gulfstream back in 21. Since then, she's won a maiden race by 8.5, an allowance race by 9, another allowance race by 5.5, allowance race at Saratoga here earlier this month by 4. Odds on in every one, and yet I underestimated her. I mean, if you go back and watch her last race, she was kind of drifted in, and she wasn't really. I mean, it wasn't a pretty win, but she won. But this time, straight and true, and now she's a perfect 3 for 3 going 7/8, and of course the Breeders' Cup Filly American Sprint at 7/8. Now she had a pristine trip. She was outside. She could move when she wanted to move. She was able to follow horses. Maybe the race flattered her. I don't know. But I think she's a serious racehorse. She's by Go Sapper. She's only had now 6 starts with 5 wins. And some of the other ones that I respected, like CC and Bella Sophia, I mean, I can't figure them out. Bella Sophia's got 2 really below par races now in a row. And I'm not sure CC likes this track at all. She didn't run all that well in this race last year, but she didn't fire at all. I mean, she was just not good at all. So, but in the meantime, Goodnight Olive, I mean, is she now at the head of the class? I mean, this was a pretty good race to win, and she did it with a fast number, and she did it easily.
I think she is, because when you look at this class, there's not a world beater out in California like Gamine in recent years. And then you look at those Kentucky lasses that go after it every time against each other, being Bell's the one in Wisconsin, right? I mean, they're right. Like, you know, Ollie Frazier, like, you know, it's rematch after rematch after rematch. They're very good, and we'll probably see them in the Thoroughbred Club of America, the TCA at Keeneland, a race that, you know, that their trainers are a meet and a race that their trainers point for. So I would expect we get to see them again in the TCA. They'll run the Gallant Bloom September 25th in New York. Maybe we'll get another shot for somebody in the Filly American Sprint division to announce their candidacy, but I see no reason whatsoever. It was a weak division last year, again, with 4 or 5 starters, entries in the box for the Filly American Sprint. CC won it. This race tells me, you know, maybe she just doesn't like Saratoga, but we don't know if she likes Keeneland a lot more either. So that would be one that I'd like to see local works with CC if they get her to the Breeders' Cup early, and how she runs over the track there at Keeneland and how she may fare. But, you know, right now they run the Breeders' Cup today. Goodnight Olive's a big-time favorite, and I have to tell you, my parrot Olive probably appreciated that victory. If you ever hear in the background of any of these videos where it sounds like I'm at Mutual of Omaha Wild Kingdom or something,
yeah, I do, and
that's Olive. She's in the background, so and I can root for a horse named Goodnight Olive.
Olive is not afraid to, you know, to chirp in when she hears something that she disagrees with what we say, you know. Right. So, I mean, I tend to hear sometimes on the background a dissenting voice there, and I'm all ears.
They asked me a couple weeks ago on a Zoom call if I was being attacked in the background. I'm like, I don't even know. What do you say? I don't even hear it. You know, I'm used to it at this point. But yeah, if you ever hear any of those weird noises in the background, it's just Olive. Give her a salute. Let's go to our next topic on the board. It is the 5th and final of our regular topics this week, and it's been a summer staple for us, the Stars of Tomorrow. We look for horses who are coming up through the 2-year-old ranks, or maybe a 3-year-old who hasn't started yet, and we're trying to find, you know, a horse that you definitely want to keep your eyes on for the future. Jeff, we talked about this one a couple weeks ago in the career debut, Lost Ark. Lost Ark was back in the Sapling Stakes at Monmouth Park over the weekend, going 2 turns and looked awfully good.
Bourbon Spirit, V-Mart, and Major Dude have been going at it from the moment the gate opened, and Major Dude now makes his move and puts his head in front. Lost Ark is angled out, and he's coming with a big bid while wide, starting to lengthen that stride as they turn for home. Bourbon Spirit fights back, but a fresh challenge from Lost Ark, and Lost Ark, big, powerful strides, puts him away in the sapling. It's going to be Lost Ark drawing clear under Javier Castellano to win by about 7 lengths.
It's the big strides Frank Miramati talked about. It's just like a small little, you know, a core of this horse and these big long legs running along like a kangaroo, but really picks up the ground. Jeff, tell us more about this impressive 2-year-old Lost Ark.
I like him a lot. Too bad he has no pedigree, though. I mean, he's got nothing on the bottom line there, other than the fact that he's a half brother to Nest and Sanity the handicap winner idol. Other than that, there's just not much on the bottom there, you know. So but the big rangy horse, the long stride, not the smoothest mover, but he sure covers a lot of ground. And I thought it was interesting that even though this is a non-graded stakes, Todd Pletcher has lost Ark, and then rather than keep him around one turn, I said, no, this horse is a two-turn horse. He's going to run all day. Might as well get the two-turn experience into him in this race, and he did it. Won by 7.5, and wasn't even in front at the 8th pole, according to the chart. So all of his best work from the final furlong to the wire. And the 82 buyer number was very solid, very legit for a horse at this time of the year, around 2 turns. And I guess he would run him back maybe at Keeneland and then into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. But, Jeremy, I'm impressed. I mean, how can you not be?
Yeah, and look, he's got that gangly stride, right? You don't throw that horse in the hopeful at 7 furlongs.
No.
You know, let him stretch out through this. And if you're going to run at Keeneland for the local prep and the Breeders' Futurity, which Todd supports that race strongly, get him the 2-turn now so that his first start isn't the grade 1 for 2 turns. He's going to have an advantage, you know, developmentally over a lot of the horses he meets in that race. And then, of course, that's at the host site for this year's Breeders' Cup, as we've mentioned many times. So it sets up very nicely. I would not look at the resume of this horse in a couple weeks at Keeneland and look back and say, oh, he was B horse for Todd running at Monmouth. This is not a B horse. This horse is expensive, regally blue blood, has all the pedigree in the world. To me, this looks like tactics. And it's interesting because we talk about Todd Pletcher and 2-year-olds in tactics this time of year. He used to empty the barn. I went back and run some stats through the BetMix database because I knew for sure that Todd has changed his program. And you could see it with his 3-year-olds later developing, maybe debut at Gulfstream and then try to develop 3-year-olds that way. He hasn't been a Saratoga 2-year-old trainer in the last couple of years. And here's some startling numbers. In 2017, during the months of July and August, Todd Pletcher ran 24 2-year-olds in stakes races in 2017. The last 2 years, he ran 2 last year and 3 the year before. Stakes horses in July and August, like Saratoga time, hot summertime. Todd has changed his game around completely to not develop horses like that. Again, he went from 24 stakes horses to just 5 the past 2 years. Yeah. And so for this horse to develop early, get a 2-turn race already, and we're not out of the month of August, this is not on the typical program for Pletcher to last 2 years. So that tells me this horse is advanced.
Yeah. Well, he won his first start, and he did that in early July. So he was advanced enough to start early. Not too many trainers start horses that early anymore. The good ones, they kind of wait.
Yep.
You know, I mean, he obviously was precocious enough and learned his lessons well, did everything right. Todd said, I'm just going to run him, you know, it's barely into July, and we'll run him. And then after that, he said, okay, I'm looking at this colt. Why am I going to sprint him? I'm not going to run him in a Saratoga special or anything like that. That's counterproductive. I'm going to make a rat horse out of him because that's what he is. And he probably said, okay, I'll wait for the sapling. It's on the schedule. Can't run him 2 turns at Saratoga. You can't run him 2 turns at Aqueduct. So what am I going to do? I'll run here. I'll go on to Keeneland, and then I'll stay at Keeneland and run him in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. It makes sense to me. And I mean, there's some good, really good 2-year-olds out there. It's loaded so far, but right now, Lost Ark maybe has an edge because he's already been the trip.
And if he gets stunted between now and the Breeders' Cup, he's got the Remsen at 1 1/8 at the end of the 2-year-old season, which would just fit into that whole nest feeling and all that with going longer and longer than a lot of the other horses don't want to go. So they've got a lot of options with him. And again, he would look like a very good Remsen horse later this year. Sure. From Todd Pletcher to Tim Martin we go. Owner-trainer Tim Martin's got a 2-year-old out in Iowa, Jeff Siegel, who has won 4 races by 53 1/4 lengths. There's a little bit of talk on Twitter about this horse, but over the weekend, it was another win for Tyler's Tribe in the Prairie Meadows freshman, drawing off 15 lengths in the victory. Plus, this is a horse who has not been challenged yet. What do you see on video?
Well, I mean, he's beating nobody. Let's face it. But he's doing it by a pole. I don't know how much faster he could run. I'm not sure why he had to feel a stick in the last 50 yards. He was already 15 in front. But hey, you want to get caught by surprise, you know, in the final with some Silky Sullivan type horse. But no, he's obviously very good. But I think they're doing the right thing. They're not going to go and do anything stupid. He's a gelding. And I mean, at this stage of the game, you have one goal for a gelding, and that is to keep him running until he's 9, because the more the merrier. Try to grind out a long-term career. You don't have to, the racing is not going to end tomorrow. You don't have to get too ambitious. He'll just go about his business as an Iowa bred and take these purses. And as long as they can get the race to fill, he'll be fine. I mean, he's a fun horse he's a good, popular local horse. And maybe someday he'll get a chance to step out of his comfort zone and tackle real horses. But right now, I think the idea is to win as many races as easily as they can and take in the purse money.
He went 109-4. Very good time there for a 2-year-old. Fast track at Prairie Meadows, though, obviously. Sharp ass tech of the sire tells you he's probably going to be a sprinter, and we'll see how good of a sprinter he can turn out to be. That wraps up our 5 topics this week, and it's official as we typically have each week. And most weeks we throw in a bonus topic for you as well. I want to talk a little international sporting for you because recently, Jeff, this summer, we haven't had a chance to talk about it much, but Baaeed has become the horse of the world on turf in England. Juddmonte International wants his 10th straight victory. What can we expect out of Baaeed? Will we see him, you think, here in the States?
Unfortunately, no. There's no plan at all to run him in the Breeders' Cup. I would love to see him in the Classic. I mean, what do you got to lose, right? If he gets beat, but I think they might have considered that if he wasn't undefeated. But he's undefeated, so they probably don't want to. I just want to run him in another race where he can retire undefeated, and that would be kind of nice.
Yeah.
They were kind of thinking about maybe the Arc. He's kind of a firm ground type of horse. No one really thought he was a 1.25 mile horse. Well, they were concerned, but much less a 1.5 mile horse. Plus, you get the soft ground in France that time of the year. So he's going to have one more race, either the Arc or the Champions, and I think that'll be it for him. But Cope, I see the Stars, who was an incredible racehorse himself, and they've kind of run out of competition among the middle distance type horses. And I'm not sure whether I would try the Arc. Maybe I would. I don't know if I owned him. But they're sporting, and I think that they'll probably try to go to the Arc if everything shows up well. But in terms of his natural talent, you could say he's as good as Frankel, and he wouldn't get laughed at, at all. And even his sire, See the Stars, it was unbelievable as well. So he is the real deal. You can say he's the best horse in the world. It's kind of apples and oranges comparing to what we have here in the States. We certainly don't have anybody who could touch him going 1.25 miles, 1.25 miles. Whether or not he could do that kind of form and run him under our circumstances and on the dirt, we're never going to find out. It's too bad, but enjoy him while you can.
After going 10 for 10 and winning the Juddmonte International, you would just think for the English sports fans, the rest would be gravy, right? After you've seen Baaeed.
Yeah.
Did I mention gravy?
Was
Monday in England, the English, they just can't have like a sophisticated event like the Juddmonte International without a little quirkiness. In Lancashire, England, yesterday on Monday was the World Gravy Wrestling Championships, Jeff Siegel. It was back after a 2-year hiatus because of COVID, because we all know gravy is the greatest conduit of disease. So we get the return of the World Gravy Championship, Jeff. There were 30 men and 10 women who were willing to take their lumps in the Gravy Championship, and the plot thickened. It was all for charity. They raised money for a hospice care unit in Lancashire. It's a traditional event there. But after seeing Baaeed, I was thinking, it's all gravy from here, and truly it was yesterday in England. Any thoughts, gravy wrestling in your future?
Not for me. We have our hot dog eating contest out here in the United States, so that's kind of like the same thing. I like gravy. Not that much, but hey, if it's all for charity, have at it.
I can see you just grabbing Aaron Ver Cruzy or one of your old buddies like that and hoisting them up over your shoulder. That should be a great match. John White, I could see you against John White in a gravy competition. That'd be good stuff.
I would do it. If it's for a good cause. It's just gravy. I might stop and have a little bit of a sampling while I was at it. But
mop it up with some biscuits in between rounds or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I can lay out this week. Are you all right with the puns?
I'm fun. You're great.
That's a wrap for this week's It's Official. On behalf of everybody at First Technologies and my partner Jeff Siegel, we'll be smooth the rest of the week. No more gravy jokes for us, but we will be back on Friday when we take a look at the weekend stakes races with the First Call podcast. We'll have 8 races to set up for you, including Pacific Classic weekend. And it's Tuesday as we release It's Official. Want to remind you the field will be drawn tonight for the Pacific Classics. You'll see Flightline and who he might be up against a little bit later. Be sure to follow news.first.com and at expressbet.com in the blog section for all the updated news between now and our next podcast on Friday. Good luck, everybody.